journey beyond imposter syndrome. This is where I invite you into a space where high achievers and spiritual leaders converge to redefine success and self-worth. By sharing transformative stories and engaging with thought leaders, this podcast serves as a roadmap for navigating the complexities of imposter syndrome. It's an intimate look into overcoming personal barriers tailored for those who value wisdom, leadership, and intuition in business and life. Join me at the Humble Warrior Podcast with Alani Bankhead. Welcome to the Humble Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Alani Bankhead, and you guys, I am so excited to have Faith Robles on the podcast today. Faith Robles is someone I deeply admire. And you know what? I'm not even going to introduce her because her story is just so incredible. So I will let her introduce herself. So please, Faith, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Melanie. It's such an honor to be here with you today. I am Faith Robles, originally from Tila, Chiapas, Mexico. I am indigenous Mayan. I grew up speaking Chol, which is Mayan language. Then my parents decided to move to a different place. And at the age of 6 years old, I had to learn Spanish. Then when I was 14 years old, I was taken away from Mexico. It's been already 14 years, and I will never be able to go back to Mexico and see my family again for my own safety.
Oh, wow. That's super crazy. Is there a reason why you can't go back for safety purposes that you're willing to share with us?
Oh, yes, because I am the whole reason. I decided that it's time for me to share all my hard work and credits for to advocate for my own self. I was the first victim and minor back then who happened to escape, and I happened to go on my own into the police station. I arrived to the NYPD. They heard me and they listened to my story. And because I decided personally to collaborate with law enforcement, they were able also to reallocate and find the other victims and provide them resources.
Wow, that
Yeah.
sounds amazing. Do you mind? I'm sorry, I think I might have missed it, but you mentioned being victimized. What were you victimized by?
I was victimized by a trafficker, actually.
Okay.
A lot of people, Alani, you're the first one hearing this, actually. A lot of people picture a trafficker being an adult, being like a 30, 40-year-old, right? That's what a lot of people think, how it looks, a trafficker. Back then I was 14 and this guy was 16, I believe.
Wow. So you're a survivor of trafficking.
Yes,
Holy cow.
I am
Okay.
a survivor of child trafficking,
Wow.
which is rare for victims of child trafficking to escape or to ask for help because of all the fear.
Absolutely. No, I just got chills hearing you share that because as someone who works on the law enforcement side, who has investigated all types of child sex crimes, it is so rare to find a trafficking survivor who goes to law enforcement, wants to be a willing participant of the process, and actually comes out the other side in terms of with a positive justice system outcome. I know we're not going to talk about the ins and outs of the trial because that doesn't matter, but would you mind sharing what was the end result in terms of how did you come out of that whole justice system cycle?
It was really tough and difficult because throughout the investigation, throughout trial and sentencing, is very difficult. It took me years of therapy to undo and understand what really happened to me. And I even had to go back into what and where it started for me to be manipulated when I started to be sexually abused as a little kid, the sexual assaults that happened in my teenagers. So I was very vulnerable. Home was very unstable. It's in reality is an unsafe place for me.
Yeah.
Be with them. I always wished to be adopted too because I wanted to have the mother and father figure. But because I am an adult, it takes time, and I was told at the age of 18, sorry, you can't. I'm all alone in the United States, no family, no nothing. And it was difficult. There were nights where I would be crying, dealing with PTSD, anxiety, not knowing who I am. Because a lot of people don't understand after you escaped or during trafficking. Plus, let's add what happened in your childhood. You have so much trauma by the time you escaped, you don't know who you are, what you're doing, or anything until you start to work with a therapist and start to get into reality. What is it that we're doing? How can we help this person heal? And aftercare services, as in for law enforcement to find them, it's very difficult,
Mhm.
especially homes too. Like, where do we send the victims to get into a safe place? And there is like a small amount of safe homes where you can send a minor. And then also making sure they're getting the services they need in their own language.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, there's so much amazing stuff to unpack here. So, for those who are listening who are not in the justice space, there are a couple terms that Faith used that I just want to make sure you guys understand what they are. So, first, Faith talked about aftercare, which is aftercare is after it's come to light that a crime has happened and there's significant trauma involved, such as child sex trafficking. We have processes in place to get the survivor support, whether it's mental health services or they have a victim services advocate that can plug them in with resources. Let's say they're getting out of a dangerous situation. We could potentially put them in what Faith called a specialty home. And so there's all these complexities with the aftercare process. And a lot of detrimental issues with the system that, frankly, we need to do better. And some of those key issues that Faith was alluding to are first, law enforcement isn't focused on aftercare. And so the law enforcement victim services aftercare piece, we don't do the best job of integrating as best as we could. And oftentimes, of course, you want the person to heal, but healing is a lifelong process, especially with the amount of trauma that you're talking about starting in childhood. And so it's not just go to a couple therapy sessions and you're good. It's a whole thing. And it affects how victims participate in the justice system, if they choose to participate in the justice system. Something I think that you honed in on, which is so important, is your identity. When you came out of that, you had to rebuild everything because what you discovered was you became aware that everything you'd been told since childhood, it sounded, was not actually who you were. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what some of those key kind of like thoughts that you had about what your identity was that you had to undo?
First, I thought that I was this child who just was there to be like, let's say, like a doll that you can use however you want it,
Mhm.
and couldn't speak, couldn't say no. And I had to say yes to every single thing. So learning to say no was a big deal. Speaking for my own, even like asking what food I wanted too. What do you want? And I would be like stuck there for 30 minutes or an hour figuring out what I wanted, right? Learning how to teach a little kid again. It's okay to say no. You're not forced to do something that you don't like. It's okay if you want to try something else, speak on your own. Don't let somebody else speak for you because that happened for many years for me. Therapy has been such a big key to me to be able to learn and undo every single thing. And something that I told a friend was once I started to go through therapy, I realized how much traumatized and depressed and PTSD I had. And I got angry at my parents, the traffickers, their families. I was so angry that I even told God, why did you do this to me? I did not deserve this at all. And I am a religious person. And I remember one day hearing something like, it's not your fault. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to ask me why. And Christ has been part of my healing throughout these years. Forgiving is a big deal too. I something that I like to tell people is that Forgiving is not for you. Like I told somebody, I told my traffickers, I hope you go to hell. I don't care because that's where you took me. And I remember people out there on social media, they couldn't see my face, saying, how I dare her. She forgave them. And then in other interviews, people would be like, why doesn't she forgive them? You're mad because I forgive somebody, and now you're mad because I am not? Who understands you? Who are you to come and tell me what's right and what's wrong? You weren't there. You didn't saw when I was punched in the face and my jaw got broken. You weren't there when all of the injuries happened into my body. You weren't there to witness them. How dare you for speaking about it, right? Something that I learned was forgiveness is not for the trafficker, it's not for the person who hurt you, for the person who destroyed your life, it's for your own self. And I call that and name it. Forgiveness is for my own little soul, for my own little child who can still hug a little bear at night. Who cares, right? Learning how to take care and nurture that little one who didn't have growing up, or those 4 years that was taken away from her. A lot of people ask, what is more important? And your teenagers, 14, because I was trafficked at 14 and escaped on my own right before 20, I missed 4 years.
Wow.
And those were vital.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This is so powerful. And I want to go back to the beginning of what you just shared. Thank you so much. And you talked about initially when I was a child, I was made to feel like I was a doll that people could use. And so I was an object. And I didn't have feelings. I didn't have a voice. I didn't have needs. Certainly, if I did, I wasn't allowed to vocalize them. And that's a really common thing that we see amongst survivors of any kind of sexual crime. But also, I see that a lot in my private practice in dealing with imposter syndrome, right? Which is the belief that you're not good enough or worthy or qualified for the work that you're doing or the accolades or the awards or even the pay. And it's really interesting how much that identity of you being an object that other people use for their pleasure, for their benefit, and in this case it was financial benefit, right? Is just so crazy. And the most powerful tool I have learned, you can tell me if you feel differently, is once you get the awareness of the reality of what happened to you, then everything can start to change because then you can decide I'm not an object. I'm a human being and I have needs and desires and wants and I have a voice and I can say no. And hearing you share that, now I know I can say no. Now I know that I can tell people what I want or what I don't want. And it's a lot of work to undo that old programming to get to this place. So, if you don't mind my asking, what was the moment for you where you woke up to the reality and realized, oh my gosh, this is how I've been viewing myself? This is the message I got, and it was part of me. And then you realize I can change this narrative for myself.
Thank you, Lani. That's a great question. So, something that helped me a lot. Oh, I am going to share you a story actually.
Okay.
I had to learn Spanish at the age of 6, and that was very difficult. But this event in New York City, I was in a counseling area where they have Hispanic, what's the word I'm trying to find? Hispanic clients.
Sure.
And I was trying to learn English as my third language, and it's so difficult. And this was 1 year later after I had escaped. Learning a new language is difficult. And when you start to learn a new language, your brain is stuck in one language. And I'll just leave it into this example. Like the lady who was seated with me started to talk to me, and I could not speak in Spanish. I tried to whatever, did not work that day. And the lady said, don't worry. I understand English. I can't speak it, but I understand you. The rest of people around in the waiting area got angry at me for speaking in English. What are you doing here? Don't you see we all here speak Spanish and you speak English? That's when I noticed, wait a minute, this is what I have to stop listening to those people who are around that they don't even know who I am. They don't even know what I am dealing with. And back then I was dealing with depression, PTSD, anxiety, and all other emotional stuff that I was trying even to I could barely function. And I promised myself that day, if I ever had to go back to that place again, I would go, and depending on their situation, whether they needed help in English or Spanish, mainly would be in English, I would have to tell them, why don't you learn English? Remember what you told me that day.
Right.
Why are you speaking English? We all speak Spanish. Learning how to listen your own inner self is such an important piece.
Yes.
If you listen to whatever other people around you is telling you, who are judging you, who are not your friends, who are just there to see, they might be angry because you have achieved something and they haven't. There are so many things that I feel like if you listen to society, what's happening around with the news, what's happening around with all of the craziness that has the world, I can't imagine myself keep listening to those people. I wouldn't be here actually if I would have listened to them.
Right.
Probably today I wouldn't even speak English. But instead, I choose to learn and I challenge myself. There were nights that I would cry. Even until this day, there are times that I'm writing in English and then I don't know how to spell something. And it's difficult, right? It's not easy. But learning, stop listening to those people that don't care about you. They're just there to judge you. They're not
Right.
there to support you, uplift you, help you grow. That's the type of friends you need in life.
Yes, sent. And so for the person who's listening to this right now, who is hearing what you're sharing and saying, "Oh my gosh, that's me." Right? Maybe they just woke up to realizing like, "Oh, that stuff that happened to me in the past isn't normal and that's not okay." And I feel like I've been an object my whole life. I don't know what my needs and wants are, and I don't know how to say no, and I don't have a voice. What would you tell them is the first step that they to start their healing journey?
So, first, I would personally recommend the person to find a therapist. Yes, you can find stuff online for free. There are resources, books out there that can help you. But the first step is going to therapy because that therapist, you can start talking to them and tell them, like, I don't know what happened to me, but this is my story. Then they will help you. They're not there to tell you this is what you do. They're there to guide you. That's how I call the therapist. Like, the therapist is there to guide you, to find out what happened, and to help you find resources for you to heal.
Yes. Okay. So therapy, a number one, and there are free resources out there. And I know there's some other tools like BetterUp. And if you unfortunately are a survivor of a sex crime and you do partner with justice system professionals, there are some resources they can allocate for you to get you some therapy and some counseling and whatnot. Okay. And so ultimately, it sounds like that therapist really helped you untangle the different parts of your story so you could examine them and decide for yourself what your new identity was going to be. And so, what did that look like in terms of, okay, so you're with this therapist, you have this aha moment in this waiting room. And was a waiting room in New York City?
Yes, this was it in New York City. Like,
Wait, so they're yelling at you for speaking English in New York City? I was
yes,
like, I must have missed. She must have been in Mexico when this happened. Oh my
no, no,
gosh,
no,
that
no,
is
no. Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, this happened to me in New York City. And Mexico happened to me as a little kid because I didn't speak Spanish at all. And I had to
Right.
learn Spanish when I was 6. So I was bullied for not being able to speak Spanish, for my color of skin because I have darker skin, for being skinny and tiny. I am 4'11". All of my
Mhm,
classmates were taller than I was, and I'm
mhm,
little. So I
mhm,
was bullied for so many things and for being poor.
mm.
Now I'm like, who's the poor? want. That's what I tell people. In Chiapas, I used to be rich. I could eat whatever I wanted, eat as many mangoes, as many avocados, green stuff that now in the US it's considered eco. Oh, what's the word I'm trying to find? It will come back to me.
Eco-conscious or
Or it's organic,
organic?
organic, or this and that. And I'm like, I had that.
Yeah, and it's expensive, right? And you had it
Yeah.
in abundance. Yeah.
Yes, but the problem was there is another whole story to what was happening that my family had to leave because they didn't feel safe.
Yeah, of course, there are parts of Mexico that don't have the same protections that a lot of parts of the United States have. And yeah, that's a very common story in South America, unfortunately. But so what I heard was actually the way I frame the imposter syndrome work that I do is there's usually a little voice in your head that says, I am dot. And so for you, it was, I am poor, I am small, I am indigenous, and I cannot speak. It sounds,
Yes,
yes.
Alani. Yeah. And then there is also I am not smart enough. I am not able to focus at school. I am always getting bad grades at school because I couldn't focus at school. I am not going to be able to have a better future. But then that's like my childhood. And then it comes the trauma from the traffickers because I was trafficked for many years. And then it comes like, I am just a sex object here. Nobody wants to respect you. I felt dirty. I am not smart enough. I am not capable of learning English. I am not capable of having a better future. I am not capable of getting better education. I feel
Mhm.
like I am just this object that anyone can just use as however they want and do whatever they want without saying.
Oh my goodness. So you had a lot of I am statements, and it sounds like all of them fed this much bigger imposter voice that said that you don't matter, that you
Yes,
are not
correct.
worthy because you're an object, because you're small, because you don't speak the language, because you're not smart enough. Oh my goodness. That is a really powerful statement because with imposter syndrome or any mindset, when you have a belief, you walk around the world almost like with glasses of a certain color. And the color is that belief. If you're wearing purple glasses, you think the whole world is purple. If you're wearing pink glasses, you think the whole world is pink. If there's a thought in your head saying, I don't matter and I'm just an object, then every interaction you have with people, you're going to perceive and look for evidence that I'm just an object to them. I don't matter. They're ignoring me. Now, I would love to switch gears for a second and talk about the other voice inside of you. That other, maybe small, but really powerful voice that said, when the opportunity came for you to break away from your abusers, I'm going to go to that law enforcement officer and I'm going to advocate for myself. Or when it came time for trial, I'm going to hold them accountable for what they did to me. Or the voice that said, you deserve to heal. You deserve to be a human and not an object. Tell me about that voice. Where did it come from? What does it sound like? How does it work in your head?
So my dream until this day, okay? Somebody wants to help me with my dream, I'll take it. My dream has been always learning English, getting a better education. So what inspired me was that I would see people in the park walking around, dates, going in the park, holding hands, having an ice cream. And I would tell myself, I want to be that person one day. I want to be that person eating the corn in the cob, having that cake. I want that. I want to walk around. I want to be happy. And I would daydream about how my life could look like without being in that life because I hated that life. I never felt like I belong into that life. I always felt this is not for me. I even told my traffickers, this is not what we do. When I escaped and I arrived to the NYPD, I cried. Alani, the agent asked me, how can we help you? I could not talk. I could not. I cried and cried. And the agent said to me, I believe you. And we are investigating these type of cases in Mexico. And this is from here, from A to B, the town. That was the person who gave me hope. And then there was a second agent that I just found out last year that he was the one. I remember, me and my little brain, I remember hearing, rest, take a shower and rest. Tomorrow is a big day. And I forgot for 9 years who he was until one day I said, hey, I remember somebody. And he's like laughing. Oh, it was me. Like, I can't believe I still talk to you 8 years and you never told me you were the agent who told me that. So something that I feel like agents, always tell people there are friends that I trust, and that is going to be my friends from NYPD, DHSA, because they were the ones to help me, to give me hope. This is a long process that is going to take maybe months or years. Just be patient. And them also buying me food. That's where it starts a little bit coming up the little voice of, what do you want to eat? And I remember telling them, can I have a big torta? So that was my first meal with the agents and the lawyer with me. And over time, I started to be like, there was this little wonderful woman, and I always call her Hope. I'm going to take you shopping. What do you want? Let's see. Oh, you need jammies. Let's get you jammies. Starting to get somebody in my life. What do you need? What do you want? We have toys. Which one would you like to pick today? I love minions. So whenever the minions came out, she made sure I got two minions, puzzles. I love toys already.
I love that. Yeah.
So it was like, then after that, I started to be like, I want to learn English. And then out of nowhere, there were times that I would be afraid, having nightmares at night. And then hearing the voice, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt you anymore. You are in a safe place. Even though at night it felt that they were there and coming back for me. It was horrible at night. I would be crying and screaming. And until this day, there are still nights where I would be screaming because that happens. That's PTSD. I am not sure if you have PTSD too.
I do. Oh no, are you there?
Alani, are you there?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have PTSD.
And I was talking to a friend about it who served in the military as well. And he
Mhm.
said, I had PTSD too.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
talking about,
I get it. And okay, so there were three key things in that beautiful bit that I want to highlight. So first, it sounds like that intuitive, truest, best part of you was visualizing what was possible for you. So you said when you would see people walking with their ice cream, going on dates, and you saw yourself, you were like, I want that. So giving yourself the opportunity to dream out loud in that way and say, I want that for me. I deserve to go on a date and have ice cream or share corn on the cob or whatever it might be. And then it also sounds like when you first courageously came forward and rescued yourself, basically, that first person that said, I believe you, was maybe that bridge where you got connected with all of the domino pieces that started this justice trajectory for you. And then on top of that, and I'm willing to bet they don't realize this, but you kept repeating that whether it was them offering you that first meal or taking you clothes shopping or whatever, they would always ask you, what do you want? And the fact that they asked you, actually, I'm going to side note for those who aren't aware. So there's a phrase in the justice system and aftercare spaces called victim centered. And what that means is because of the horrific nature of what people like Faith have experienced, part of the goal of the entire process is to give them control and power back. And so we get training on how we behave in front of them, how we phrase sentences and questions, because we want them to know that they always have a choice with us. And so maybe rather than saying in an interview with Faith, saying, "Tell me about what happened to you," I would rephrase and say something like, "Faith, if you feel comfortable, would you mind sharing what happened?" Because now I'm not telling Faith to tell me. Faith has the option to tell me or not. And so the fact that these people continuously and repeatedly asked her, "What do you want?" rather than just giving her whatever, it sounds like that was a mechanism for you to really start undoing that belief that I'm just an object and I don't have needs. And now you got to decide, oh, what do I want? And to be honest, I love that you brought that up because knowing what you want is such a hard thing for someone who's been in your shoes, but also for a lot of people who are very service oriented. So, people who want to serve humanity or their communities. Oftentimes, you give so much that you don't realize what your own needs are because you've put everybody else's needs ahead of yours. And I know that resonated with me as well, Faith, because I had moments where, by all intents and purposes, most people would look at me and think you're a very confident, brave, courageous, powerful woman. But I came to a moment in my life too where my therapist asked me, "What do you want out of this?" And I didn't know. And that was when I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I literally don't know what I want for myself. Like, I was so sad that day because I didn't realize how much in my trauma I was. And you're right, it is an undoing. And especially with someone like you who's so loving and caring and you want to give to so many people, it's important for you to understand what your needs are, because when you can fill that bucket and fill your heart with those needs and asking for what you need and learning how to receive them, then you can do your work from a place of fullness and joy rather than being empty and tired and depleted. And so I'm curious for you then on this journey of, now Faith knows what she wants and she knows what her North Star is. And she knows that she's a human that is worthy of all of the things. And you have so much value, it's not calculable, right? There's no way to define your value. And if you don't mind sharing, what's a little bit of the work that you've been doing since all of this happened?
Thank you, Lenny. I am a member of a Survivors Council, PACT, PACT. I'll send you the link. And then I joined PACT in 2020 as a consultant. I started to be part of some interviews where nobody knew it was me. I would use a different name and everything. And I started to give interviews in 2015. I started to participate in research for such as psychologists, psychiatrists, dentists, because a lot of victims happen to go into those places. And I wanted to help so other victims can get access to help, to resources. If somebody needs help to be rescue, I don't want to say rescue, but to be help, right? So you escaped from the hell or something. So I wanted to help them in that way. That was my goal back then. I have not, and this is a lot of people tell me, like, you're famous. Alani, I don't feel like I am famous at all. I really don't. I don't. Like, I have appeared in different news articles. I have been interviewed by Univision 41 in New York, and it was broadcast.
Worldwide.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
In Spanish, like it was boom. It was,
Yeah.
but I don't consider myself like a famous person. I consider myself like I'm just Faith. I'm just a little one who's sharing her experience. So I work with PACT on public policy, lobbying, trainings for hotels, public transportation.
Wow.
And I also help on projects, depending on what kind of projects we do, casinos. I love being part of that, even for research. Somebody might say, I am doing a research into what happened to a woman who happened to not find resources for aftercare. What happens to them, right? And I feel researchers help to figure out what's happening with the victims, because oftentimes, if you don't, I am an immigrant and If you qualify for the T visa, you get it. If you're a minor, it's faster, but if you're an adult, it takes longer. Applying for a green card. And you have to have the money. Who's going to help you? Which orgs are going to actually help you and not just use you for your story, right?
Mm.
There are so many things that go in place there that we need to take accountable in there.
Absolutely. So I just want to point out something that you just said, which was you said, I'm not famous. I'm just little Faith. And it's funny because in every person that I work with, this imposter cycle works this way. Because earlier you said, my imposter voice told me I'm an object, I am poor, I'm small, I'm indigenous, I don't speak the language, and I'm not smart enough. Except little Faith is a badass who is using her voice, right? When you thought you were not a good communicator, you are the master class in communicating your experience so that you can connect survivors with the resources. Now you're connecting with researchers and different data analysts to identify what are the results of not getting access to these resources. You're bridging that gap. And so I don't know, it sounds like all of your superpowers are built into little Faith, who was told she was nothing. And now you get to tell everybody that you can overcome your struggles and you are so loved.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Alani. I am so loved. Even my friends, I share a poster. Who wants to help me on this? I am doing this stuff. Who wants to help me? And then I have a dear friend. I would reach out. How are you doing? We're doing well. And she would be like, you do so much. And I'm like, I don't. And I feel like I'm starting to realize, wait a minute. I can't believe I have done this. I even sent when in the Judiciary Committee in Washington, D.C., I have sent my testimony. I
Big
talked to a
deal.
lot.
No
No
big
big
deal,
deal.
guys. Just the judiciary in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
Nothing. And then something that I also do is that in 2019, in springtime, I started to help and create an aftercare program for trafficking survivors in Utah.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yes, I am not the one running it. Like I
Right.
just graduated the program too, but I helped create that for survivors because when I moved to Utah, I was promised a lot of services and I didn't get them.
Mm.
So I got really mad, and one day I talked to a friend and I said, "Hey, I know more survivors like me that need to learn English, how to use a computer,
Hmm.
need to go to school, therapy, to have a garden where you can do whatever you want." Like I could picture the whole thing on my head.
Yes.
We
And you did
started
it.
to.
And you did
Oh,
it. So there
I
you
did it.
go again with that visualization. You said, I pictured it all in my head. So, in order for you to create something, this is for the audience, right? You need to be able to believe that it's possible. And that visualization technique is so powerful in helping you to create that reality. And actually, I'm going to go tool number 2 with that is vision boards are a fantastic tool as well. Because even though some people might think it's silly, I used to think vision boards were silly. But if you cut pictures out of a magazine or even do a virtual one, the act of you creating that vision from taking it from your brain and putting it on paper actually is priming your brain to say, I already created it. It might only be 2-dimensional, but I created it. And then, of course, I can create it in 3 dimensions. And so you do. And so here you were. There's that pattern again for you of your intuition gives you a thought of, why don't we create an entity that will get all these resources to people and help them learn English and help them see their value and connect them with aftercare services and actually follow through with those promises. And you did it. Holy cow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes, and it wasn't easy at all. I remember meeting with the other founders. There are two couples founders, and I am the founding survivor. And they're like, yeah, we'll help you. And they have been the most humble couples that I have ever met. One of them, I call him Papa. The other one I told her, Mama, for respect. And I feel like all I needed was having that one person listen to me, believing
Yes.
in my dream. And I remember her saying, let's try. If we failed, but we tried. I'm like, I have done this work. I started in 2015. First, all I wanted was I want to help to get my traffickers to justice. I want other victims to get help as well. And then I started to focus on my own because for many years I focused on other people, but myself. No, she can get that, not me, because. But then it has happened to me that I have lost my job due to work permits, due to my legal status, and it was really hard for me to speak up for my own. And now I'm like, nope, I need a new job. I'm looking into a new job now, Alana.
I love it. You're
Like I
like, I'm not,
told,
oh no, I need money. Yeah, this is
I
going to
need
happen.
money. Yeah,
Hmm.
like I told my husband, hey, I found something about the CNA thing. I'm going to reach out. Okay. So we'll see how that thing goes, but I am going to give it a try.
Yeah.
And I told him, if I like it, good. If not, what's the worst thing? I am stuck in there for a year. Try something else. I don't like math, but I can try something else. That's
Right.
something that I tell people. You need somebody to uplift you, to bring you. I feel like sometimes we need somebody to talk to us and remind us how good we are, how smart we are, how lovable we are, and that we have our own selves. We don't need that other person who cares about it, right? Just
Yes.
take care of yourself and figuring out things. I feel it's easier to be stuck in the past. It's
Yes.
very easy.
It's so easy to get stuck there. And then when you're in that victim mindset, if you stay there too long, it becomes like a blanket, I say. It's like this warm blanket. It protects you. You don't want to take it off. It's easier to stay the victim rather than taking control over your life and deciding how you want to live. So anybody who works at a certified nursing assistant program who has openings, let Faith know, please. She'd make a great CNA. But
Yeah.
but I love what you mentioned too about everybody needs people to tell them how powerful they are, how amazing they are, how worthy they are. Out of curiosity, when you were coming out of this traumatic part of your life and people would tell you these things, was there ever a part of you that said, "Oh, they don't mean it. They're just being nice."
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. There is this lawyer, actually. She's the sweetest little thing. You should have her one day on your podcast. She, I remember her telling me, like, because I couldn't talk. So here and there, I might lose my voice and then I can't talk or speak. And I was crying. And then she was asking me questions, and I have the thing where I will get nervous or whatever is happening to me, I will start to sing talk. I'll talk to you, but like singing. Uh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yes.
That makes so much sense actually because for some people, singing activates the part of the brain that allows things to flow more easily. So, wow, that is an incredible tool. And how creative of you to utilize that to be able to communicate.
Yes, so that was my first day of interviewing with the lawyer who was
Mm-hmm.
helping me to fill out the application for the T visa. Because I couldn't speak or talk
Mm-hmm.
very well, singing was easier for me. And I love singing anyways, but
Right,
but that helped me a lot to
right.
get through those moments.
And so, did this lawyer end up telling you something about your worthiness that caused you to think, oh, she's just being nice or,
Yeah, so when I was, because I turned 18 years old, I told her that I wish to be adopted. So bad. I wanted to be adopted by a mom and a dad. And she told me, I'm sorry, that can't be possible because you're 18 years old. And that broke my heart. As you can tell.
okay.
And she was like, I'm just telling you because that's the reality. No one is going to adopt an 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And something that she also told me, and she knows, I call her Mama Bear, Mama Oso. She told me, you are such a young little girl that didn't deserve to go through this. Makes me want to protect you like a mama bear. and hold you, like how mama bears
Mhm.
protect their little bears. That and I'm like, wow. And this lawyer has been representing me for the last past 10 years actually. And it's amazing to have her. I have questions. She's the reason of what I do. She inspired me talking to her, meeting with the prosecutors, the agents, her being on my side. Having her support has meant so much to me. She was the one who invited me to be a member of the Survivors Council with PACT.
Mhm.
And she has always believed in me. I told her one day, I want to apply for a high school, and she's my colleague can help you. I applied for high school when I was 18, but I was never accepted anymore.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
But
so I
it's
have been looking for education for many years, actually. It's
right.
hard.
It is tough in the education space, but it sounds like this person spoke life to you. It actually sounds like you did receive her words. It sounds like you didn't doubt her sincerity, that it was comforting for you. Oh, I see the wheels turning.
Yeah. So she was the one that, yes, but what some people told me, because when I started to learn English, there were people that would tell me, use Google Translate, use this and that, it will help you better. And that's when I realized that Google Translate does not help me.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't use Google Translate.
Right.
Like when people told me, like, why do you speak English? We all speak Spanish. Then I should speak Spanish? Right? Like I had self-doubt back then. Like there were times where people would tell me, you don't need a full-time job to be able to have a better life. So something that I didn't like about the okay, like
Mm-hmm.
I went to social services. They helped me with my rent and food stamps. Because I was 18 years old, I was able to attend English class, and I don't remember what other class I had. Oh, GED class. I didn't pass my test back then until February of this year. I obtained my high school diploma
Yes.
many years ago.
Hey.
So it was hard because people are telling me, like, you don't need to learn English, you're not smart enough. And there were times that I believed them. Like, even with social services in New York City, like, you have to show me you're going to school. And I had to show them. But if you got a job and you were getting paid, I don't remember how much it was, the amount back then, but it's like $20,000. If you make more than that, you cannot longer receive services. Like
Sure.
helping you, you're on your own. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, so that's why right now I have not received any help from social services
Got
at
it.
all
Got
because
it.
I felt like, to me it felt like controlling, like how many hours you're going to
Mm.
school. Like I
So
should,
that was not trauma informed.
no,
Yes,
no,
no,
no.
it wasn't.
Mm-mm.
But what I'm actually hearing in you sharing all of that was that there are all these people around you telling you what you should do. So you should speak in Spanish. You should use Google Translate. You should do this other thing. But it sounds like your internal compass was telling you, no, I don't need to listen to them. So you've always had a strong, innate ability to hear your intuition guide you.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Only during trafficking was that I lost that. I gained back myself after I had escaped, because during trafficking, whatever you told me, it was right. If the trafficker told me, like, I know whatever you're thinking, what you're going to do, and this and that, I believe that person 100%.
Yes. Yes.
But getting out of that, it was like, welcome. You don't know who I
Yes.
am now.
Oh my goodness. And so that's a great point and perspective for the listeners. The way I like to say it is, if I wouldn't go to you for advice, why am I going to listen to your feedback about things? So if you're not a person that I know to be loving, caring, genuinely interested in my success, then why would I listen to your criticisms? Why would I consider your perspective? And so, Faith, we've covered some ground in terms of what your journey looked like to getting out of it and healing, which is incredible. One thing that happens a lot with imposter syndrome is people fall back into old habits because that's what they know. Okay, Faith. So let's pivot for a second. And I'm curious because I've been in a similar space as you in terms of in that justice field. Have you observed any exploitation on the part of any justice system entities, whether they be nonprofits or anything else?
Yes, I have. And sadly, those persons happen to have a lot of power, and it's not common to hear victims coming out and speaking themselves because it's scary too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something that I've observed as well. And just to be clear, we're not saying that all nonprofits are like this, but unfortunately, humans are going to be humans. And maybe something that started with really good intent over time evolved into something else. And unfortunately, the nonprofit space does have some pretty powerful folks who on social media or with their marketing show a certain face, but when you peek behind the curtain, it's rotten back there. And it's really about raising money and gaining more power. And I will say the anti-trafficking space and the anti-child exploitation space it's my favorite mission to work because protecting the vulnerable from bullies is like my favorite thing to do. But on the flip side, it attracts the best humans. Like I've worked with some of the best people on the planet. And I've also encountered some very egotistical, power hungry people at the same time. And so, Faith, for people who maybe want to get involved in ending trafficking, what is the best advice you would give them in terms of knowing where to donate their money or their time?
Thank you, Alani. So something that I like to tell people is donate to those who you know where your money is going to. You have the right as a donor to ask, how did you use my money? What did you spend it on? If the org isn't telling you I spend it on this stuff, then that's a red flag. Like, why aren't they showing you how they spent your money? Um,
Yes.
Something that I like to tell people is support survivors. Let's say you have a company of cleaning, you have a company that sells or something, and you have a call center. Talk to those organizations that are around you to see if there are survivors looking for a job. Oftentimes, we as survivors, personally, I do not have a criminal record, but there are survivors that do. And it's
Yes.
difficult for them to find a job. Even myself, even though I don't have a criminal record, it can be tough for me to find a job because English is my third language and I might not have all of the education that you need. But something that I told to the company who hired me to have was, I just need a job. If you could just give me training and teach me, I promise you, I will be able to do my job.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up because that comes up a lot when I go do presentations or speeches is people will always tell me afterwards, I want to get involved, but I don't know how. Like, how do I get involved? And I always tell them, you don't have to start an anti-trafficking nonprofit to be part of the difference. I like to tell them, use your gifts or whatever it is that you're called to do. It doesn't matter how small the contribution is, it matters. So, for example, there are some people who are very wealthy, who have the finances. If that is how you are called to serve, is to provide resourcing to these entities that are doing good work, that are fully vetted, that is amazing. But if you don't have the money, for people who might know a survivor or know someone who has survived horrific abuse of some other kind. If you're amazing at making casseroles or pies or whatever, you have no idea the power of food, right? Faith just shared her own story of wanting a torta when they asked her, hey, what do you want to eat? And that power of food is one of the biggest things that connects us. And as a side story, when I in the past have run informants and sources, whether they're in the United States or overseas, food has always been one of the biggest connecting things. Food is how we nourish other people, it's how we express our love. And so leaving a casserole pot or a pie or something that you made with love on someone's doorstep can be that encouragement that person needs today. But if you are a survivor and you want to get other survivors together, if you want to start a nonprofit, if you want to, you can do it. It's just a matter of what do you have available to you and where do you want to make the impact today? What matters is the person that's in front of you, right? Like how can I support them today? And so there is never any small or big way of doing it. I personally believe that if we all contribute our little gift, that adds up to really big successes at the end of the day. And so,
Yes, Alani.
go
Yeah. Sorry.
ahead.
You asked me a minute ago, like, how can people help and where can they donate their money? They can donate it to wearepacked.org. We are packed. We do hotels trainings, public transportation, public policy, lobbying. And if you want somebody to come over and speak at your company, you can book survivors there. We have female and male survivors. We have different ethnicities as well. And you can reach us there, and you will see Faith Robles, my picture there too. And then also, if you would like to donate an aftercare program, the org that I happened to help create is daliashope.org. And you can say, Faith shared this with Alani and her podcast.
Oh my gosh, yes. We will link those resources in the show notes so you guys can go. Don't walk, run to support these entities because we know that they're very heart-centered and focused on the survivor rather than just being cash cows like some other organizations are. And so thank you so much for sharing those. Now, Faith, there was one other thing that you mentioned earlier that we haven't talked about.
Okay.
You had mentioned your relationship with God and how it supported your healing. And just so I can be clear with the listeners, spirituality is core to the work that I do. So understanding what you believe and why you believe it is of paramount importance. It doesn't matter. I personally don't care, and we're not here to sway you either way. But Faith, I would love for you to share whatever parts you feel comfortable with in terms of what your spirituality did for you during this entire process.
My spirituality helped me to find hope, knowing that all of that bad stuff will go away eventually. Even though I knew I wasn't going to be able to erase all of the dark things that happened to me, but knowing that the atonement of Christ exists to heal all of what happened to me. There is this wonderful song. It's called El Alfarero. It's the person who makes the cups or the plates. And there is a part of the song that says, I want to be a new cup. I want you to make me a new cup. And in the song says, yes, I will make you into a new cup. But in the process, I am going to make you go through fire. And I will make you into a new cup. But in the process, you will have to go and face that again. So I made my own little interpretation of the song and changed things like, what does it mean to me? Because it's personal, right?
Of course.
Um, to me, it meant like you're going to have to go back into the past and it's going to hurt you, it's going to break you. But once that is over, you're going to be a new cup. You're going
Mm,
to be this new little creature, new person.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And it actually reminds me a little bit. I got the visual of sometimes when bones break and they don't set well, sometimes doctors have to go back and re-break the bone to fully heal it. So they have to go back to that brokenness in order to set it so that it can grow properly and be fully healthy again. And that's not a fun process. Nobody wants a bone to be rebroken, but that's a short-term thing for long-term gain. And for you, what it sounds like is you really learned how to turn your pain into purpose. And that's what you're doing. Little Faith. By the way, how did you learn English?
I went to school in New York and I took English class and I watch movies. I love Jackie Chan, by the way. I
Jackie
just go
Chan.
crazy. I go crazy.
Oh my
Even
gosh,
if I
that's
could
so
meet him,
funny.
a big part of a movie. No, literally. I love Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. I watched those movies in English and they had the subtitles. Even, what's the name? Bad Boys? Oh, I
Bad
love that
Boys.
movie. Yeah,
Yes.
there
With
is
Will
one,
Smith.
and Martin Lawrence, I think that's his last
Mhm.
name. There is a part of a movie that reminds me of how an agent asked me, so tell me, how do they look like? So I have a picture there and me with my scary face because that's how I tell me, how do they look like? I'm like, oh. Like there is a scene there with a girl seated in the car. I'm like, oh, that's me.
Funny.
So there are stuff that I have done to create new memories too. I don't know. I just feel like creating new memories help you too.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. And so we're going to be wrapping up here. I have two more questions for you. One
Okay.
is if you could go back in time to little Faith, who felt like an object, who thought she was poor and small and indigenous and couldn't speak and that she wasn't smart enough. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell that Faith?
Oh, I would tell her not worry about it because the future is bright.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Even with all of your story, all of the craziness being trafficked from Mexico to New York City, you would still tell her, you're going to go through this, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be better than okay. Your future is so bright.
Yes, and I would even tell her you will learn English. You are going to be able to speak in front of people again. You will be able to recite your poems if that's what you want.
Oh, that's so
Just trust
beautiful.
me. Like
Yes.
you just have to tell little Faith, just trust me. Your
Right.
future is bright and you can
Yes.
be jumping up and down.
Yes.
You
And
will get married.
yes, and trust and hope are spiritual practices, right? So you
Right.
have to believe in a future that you cannot control or prove. But that's a theme that comes up a lot on this podcast is it's going to be okay. It's going to be better than okay. So just put one step in front of the other. I know for me, I tell people, I wish I had taken all that fear I experienced and channeled it into creating solutions rather than staying in my fear. But man, that is so good. Yeah. So for those of you who are struggling today and you don't see a way out, Faith is here to tell you it's going to be okay. It's going to come out so much better than you thought it was going to. And Faith, do you have any last parting wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
Absolutely, yes. Even if you're going through hard times, I still do. I happen to be in pain a lot, and there are days that I can't even walk, and I can't because of what happened to me during trafficking. My traffickers physically, emotionally abuse me, so I have broken bones too. There are days that I do get angry and remember what happened. And that's okay. You don't have to hide your feelings. Feel your feelings. Like yesterday night I was crying because I happened to play a song and I said, I can't believe that thing still hurts me. And it has to do with my broken jaw. I have a total jaw replacement, and there is someone who's trying to help me to not get a left side surgery again. Those surgeries, the total jaw replacement, are so expensive, and I don't have the money for that. So just keep going. I'm sure there are people out there who are willing to help you. All it takes is speaking, telling a friend, hey, I'm going through this, I need help. And there is somebody always who's happy to help you. There is somebody out there that knows somebody who is willing to help, or that somebody knows someone else. And just keep in mind that today you might feel stuck and you feel like you have been stuck there for one day, 10 years, who knows? You're the only one who knows that. And stand up and say, do you know what? Today I'm standing up for my own self and I am not going to be stuck in the bed. And I am going to go outside for 5 minutes, come back, and I'll be better. Keep trying that every day. And over time, who knows? You might have two jobs, one job. You might have a better future, a better education, and all it takes is practice, giving courage to yourself, reminding yourself you are loved, you're not alone, you are in a safe place. If you have these negative friends, if you are in a very abusive relationship, I would recommend you to leave. But if you're not ready, it's okay. But if you have somebody who can help you, ask for help. Being stuck on a abusive relationship, it's the worst thing. I went through that and I wouldn't want you to be stuck in that. I wish I would have awakened myself too, because I have gotten myself in the past in bad relationships. And finally, um, my sweet husband and I, he's a cute little thing to me.
Did he take you to the park and you got ice cream and corn on the cob and you went on your walks?
Yes, he has taken me to get the corn in the tap, to get the ice cream. He actually asked me today, he's like, do you want to go to the arcade and play bowling? Bowling? I'm like, sure. So after this, we're going to have fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you did it. From that
We're going to do
girl,
it after this. Oh, yeah.
from that girl that was abused, seeing those people saying, I want to be that. Now you are that.
Yes, now I am that. And then there are moments where I'm like, my husband and I like to go on a little drive. And then I'm like, this place reminds me of this area. I don't like it. Don't bring me back again. And then I go back again and I'm like, okay. So sometimes you just have to go back and see, like, where did you came from? What happened? I feel if you aren't humble, if you forget where you came from, I don't know. There is something that happens. So I'm always like remembering, where did I came from? Faith has been always believing in herself that she can reach a better education, even if it takes her 20 years, 10 years. I'll get there. Right
Right.
now, I'm excited to start CNA class. I'm like, let's try it, see if I like it. And
Right.
all it takes is finding the resources, finding help, speaking for myself. That's all I'm doing here. Please don't give up. If I was able to get out of a bad relationship, then get myself into a healthy relationship. That doesn't mean there are no good bad days, because there are bad days. Anyone, I'm sure, Alani, you go through those bad days too.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I was just crying yesterday about something. And I loved what you said about you just have to feel your feelings. And actually, what you said about I get angry sometimes still about what happened to me. But I love telling people like anger is a tool that justice seekers use to take action. You should be angry about what happened. We all should be angry. And that anger should drive us to create the change and have uncomfortable conversations and push the system to be better because the faiths of the world deserve better than what the system has given them. Oh my goodness. Faith, you are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story. This was so powerful. And I'm so thankful that you were willing to share your story from that poor, small, indigenous, non English speaking, not smart enough little girl to this incredible, powerful woman who sits across the screen from me. Thank you so much. Faith, where can people find you?
People can find me and link Faith
Yes.
Robles, which you are following me. So
Yes,
it
we're
would be
friends.
easier for, uh,
Yes.
yeah. So
We
people can find
first,
me in LinkedIn. Oh,
yes,
yes, share
we
the story.
Yes, we first actually connected. Oh, I think was it I that reached out to you? Yeah, and
Yes.
my last name now is Bankhead. My maiden name is actually Robles. And so whenever I find other Robleses, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's another Robles. And so I reached out to her and we connected. I don't know, there's just something about it's from that family tree. And even though
Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican and you're indigenous, I think you said Mayan, right? Was yeah,
Yes.
Mayan roots, like it still feels so familiar and so comforting. And so we were able to build a relationship over LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is such a wonderful resource. I've met so many amazing humans just like you, Faith. And yeah, so LinkedIn will have the information for Pact Survivors Council as well as Delia's Hope as well in the show notes. Faith, thank you so much for joining us today. My key takeaway is whether you feel it or not, you are so loved and it's going to be okay. We just have to sometimes find stories of people who were 5 minutes ahead of us who can turn back and say, you're going to be okay. I've lived through hell And I'm here to tell you, you're going to be more than okay. I will encourage you today. And so I'm encouraged today. I hope this encouraged the audience. I know it encouraged the audience. So we'll have all the links in the show notes where people can find you. And guys, if you're looking for more resources, check out your life purpose exercise option on my website, www.mightysparrowcoaching.com. I've also included video prompts to help guide you, or you can check out my best-selling book, The Least of Us: How Your Imposter Syndrome Points to Your Greatest Power, available at all major book retailers. I'm also really excited to host my end of year event, which is this November. We're going to be focusing on shifting money mindset. It's November 5th, 12th, and 19th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check it out also in our show notes. You'll see an Eventbrite link. Until next time, humble warriors, please remember, the world needs who you are made to be. Thank you for joining us today on this journey to discover how you can harness your imposter syndrome to work for you. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this episode and would like some help overcoming your imposter syndrome, check out the free life purpose exercise on my website and subscribe to my blog. If you already know what your life purpose is and are ready to crush or harness your imposter syndrome, then you're going to love my best-selling book, The Least of Us: How Your Weakness Points to Your Greatest Power, available on Amazon and all major book retailers. Or you can hit me up at alani@mightysparrowcoaching.com to discuss private coaching or corporate and government training. That's ALANI@mightysparrowcoaching.com. Listen, there's only ever been one you, and there will only ever be one you. And you have a specific gift to give that the world desperately needs. Don't let your self-doubt be the thing preventing you from living your most joyful and impactful life. Until next time, I'm always cheering you on.